long time. Rob, man, thanks for taking some time out of your day to hang with us and do this. So let me frame today up for you. Giving Tuesday is a national movement for fundraising. And because of this COVID-19 pandemic, they have decided to make a Giving Tuesday now to help nonprofits to continue to give the essential services that they give. And so we are also jumping on this, and we're doing something a little bit different. And so we want to, this is going to be the kickoff for our relief fund. So UIWI's relief fund, and we're saying hashtag fund the future. And so we thought it was really important to kind of look ahead a little bit. Now, I got Robert on the call, and Robert, right, you're the king of strategy. Can I say that? Is that okay to say? Okay, king of strategy. And Robert is always pushing you guys, our leaders, and for those who are resource partners, Robert's his passion is to help our leaders make a plan, look towards the future, think about impact, and to plan that out strategically so that they can have the greatest impact in the world and in the lives of urban youth. And so in that vein, UIWI, we have really wanted to be forward thinking. And so really, and by the grace of God, almost like a little bit prophetic in the season. I think you would agree with that, Rob, right? And I know some of y'all were spicy and salty and mad about it, but we canceled the conference in January, and thank God we did. We didn't spend any in the time and money on that we would have had to cut anyway. And then also too, we had created a whole new creative team last year, and we took a risk on that and built this whole creative team so we could move better into the digital space. And thank you, Lord, for leading us in that and providing, and for you out there, our resource partners that would provide for that, because we would be dead in the water without Cherie and the creative team making this thing happen for us. So glad there. And then the third way that I feel like was a little prophetic was our theme for this year was the future is here, right? So the future's here, and that is for reals. The future is here. And so we wanted to think also forward thinking, and what does this pandemic do? And what do we need to position ourselves, our leaders, the church, nonprofits, to best continue to reach young people with the gospel? And we also want to think about that in fundraising as well. And as we were thinking about this, we're looking at the future, and we think the economic fallout from this pandemic is going to be massive. And so that's why, I did ask Robert to be on. Rob, kind of share with us a little bit, like, how do you see this from COVID-19, this pandemic? I mean, what are we looking at in the months to come as far as like an economic fallout from this?
Well, I think a lot of us have already been watching the news and hearing about the economic challenge that we're facing as a country in general. And I think we're starting to hear more something that we've always understood, which is any kind of crisis that happens, families of color are always hardest hit, right? The impoverished areas of our country are always the hardest hit. They're always the first to get cut from their jobs. They're always the last to get any kind of assistance, although I think the thinking might be the opposite, that they're the first to get assistance. I think the reality that we're seeing even now with, for example, with the stimulus package, in my own experience, we're seeing that families who, let's just say, maybe don't need it as much are getting it ahead of those who need it more. So I think that as this pandemic progresses, and as we more businesses begin to feel the strain of the economic impact of this, I think that people of color are going to be hardest hit. And I think we're starting to see that. I think we're just at the beginning of what we're expecting to see with people of color, which is that they're going to start again losing their jobs. They're going to start having challenges, even just with groceries. We're already seeing food banks are being challenged with just giving out groceries in communities all over the country. In our church, we're doing one as well, and we're seeing just people coming out in droves like never before to receive assistance. And so we're in an urban community, so we're seeing that kind of firsthand. And I think one of the things that's not, it's been mentioned here and there, but I don't think we realize is for, middle and upper class people who are maybe not of color, or maybe even of color, but in the upper middle class, who have had great jobs. They're able to work from home. But for a lot of the urban poor, I think the statistics are that only a third of the entire U.S. workforce is able to work from home. So it's not like people who are in low wage paying jobs can actually kind of just stay home and work from home. Those jobs require you to be at work in warehouses, in grocery stores, and other places. Thank God that grocery stores have remained open, and some of these frontline shops have remained open, because I think some of the people of color are in those jobs, and so we're grateful for that. But again, I think that we're just seeing the beginning of what could be a really, really challenging time for the urban poor and for people of color.
Yeah, I mean, and absolutely. And so as we see that coming, and I don't feel like we're right on the edge of people starting to really experience that fallout, because right now, there's been some stimulus money, right? The PPP, right? The payroll protection plan is rolling out. So there's a little bit of security there, but by and large, this thing's going to really kind of continue to fall out. And we want to prepare for that. And, the other part to all this, so, okay, most our leaders and the youth that they serve are mostly in communities of color, in low income areas and areas of poverty. So that's our reality. So we know that's going to be hit hard, and has been, and will continue to be. But the other part of all this is the hopelessness that this next generation is already feeling. They already went through 2008, right? They were little, but they experienced that. And then now this comes. And so there's a sense of hopelessness, right? And so what we want to do when we talk about this relief fund, what we want to make sure is that now's the time for the church to continue to rise up and give a real answer to the hopelessness and to what people are experiencing, especially in the places hardest hit. Well, who are the people that stand in that gap? Who are they, Rob?
It's our youth workers.
Yeah, it's absolutely our youth workers. They're the ones. It's you guys out there. And for our resource partners and for those listening to this, understand it is these leaders that are standing in the gap, continuing to bring hope, while they're also experiencing the same trauma and suffering that their students are experiencing. And so we want to make sure that we can't solve all the problems. I wish we could. But we're asking you guys to give to a relief fund, which that money is going to continue to go to support our youth workers to pay for their programming and for their supplies. And so when things start to get really tight, we want to make sure that for those that can give, that you give to the relief fund, that we're able to take that money and then bless our youth workers to continue the work that they're doing to stand in the gap, to bring hope, but to bring real life engagement to these young people who are really struggling, and to these communities. Now, I had 3 prophetic things. Here's the 4th one that we didn't talk about, right? And Rob was a huge part in shaping and bringing this to the forefront. About a year ago, right, Rob, we came up with our 2025 vision. And let me give it to you right now. It is that UIWI will fuel fuel a movement of urban leaders who will lead generations of youth to restore and rebuild broken communities globally. Rob, help the people understand how that's been prophetic in this time.
Yeah, I think when at the time that we came up with it, and a lot of prayer and thought and strategic thinking kind of went into that. We really wanted to think about, well, what is it that the world needs, right? Well, we know that the world is consistently and more so becoming, young and urban. And so we thought, well, somebody needs to lead these communities throughout the world are broken. And who's going to lead that? It's going to be the urban youth workers. It's going to be urban leaders, right? And so we wanted to help fuel that movement so that they can kind of lead the next generation into repairing and restoring these broken communities. And so that was our vision, just kind of going into this year, not realizing what was going to happen. Well, listen, what is going to happen to these communities that were already broken and helpless during this pandemic? It's going to be even more so that way, right? And so, who are we going to lean on? Who's going to help lead the young people, to rise up? Because I think young people have a lot to offer the world. I think that it's going to be young people who actually are the ones who are going to rise up to begin to heal this nation, this world, actually. But somebody's got to lead them in that, right? And so right now, what we're seeing is that I think the church is doing its best to stay afloat. And by the church, I don't mean the Big C church, because listen, God is going to have he's holding his church, in his hands, and that's never going to go away, right? Until Jesus comes back. But the local church, right? The small C church, they're doing their best to stay afloat. And so their focus is not necessarily on the young people, but on those who can help, the givers and the tithers and the people who are going to support them. And so what's happened is that our youth workers are kind of left on their own to some extent, not in all cases. I don't want to necessarily paint a bleak picture about that, but especially in urban poor communities, these churches are struggling. And we know that if the churches are struggling, our youth workers are going to be struggling. And so how are they going to, as you mentioned, Tommy, not only take care of their own families, but then take care of this extended family of youth that they've been building over the years, right? So that's where we come in. That's where we want to help. That's where this fund, I think, can really provide some assistance, where the fund can go toward, two things. It can go toward helping them provide some programming resources for them, but also any kind of supplies they need. We've had to move to digital as a church. Well, some of our youth leaders, don't have necessarily that capacity other than maybe just their phone, right? And so it would be awesome if some of these youth workers who are reaching, tons of youth, if we could provide some supplies, some resources, maybe some cameras, some laptops, whatever it takes, right, for them to continue to lead these generations of youth toward the gospel, because the gospel is transformative, and as the gospel transforms their lives, and they can begin to transform these communities. So we're excited about this opportunity to be able to do that and to help leaders continue to lead, because the beautiful thing about our youth workers is they're already used to being in crisis, and crisis hasn't stopped them from reaching youth. And so I just believe in them. We believe in them, and we know that this crisis isn't going to stop their heart, right? That is trying to reach the youth that they've been called to serve. And so because they're not going to stop, regardless of what happens, we want to make sure that we're there to offer them at least some support.
No, man, I love that. And so, friends, we're inviting you all day today to give to Giving Tuesday Now, UIWI's Relief Fund, #Fund the Future, because we really believe the future is here, and we want to make sure that it continues moving forward. We believe in you leaders and our leaders so much, and so we're calling you to action to give. And so we actually have something new for you. You can text to give. If you text Fund the Future to 714-706-1836, that would be amazing. Again, 714-706-1836. Text Fund the Future to that. That money will go to programming and supplies for our youth to bring hope and the gospel continually to these urban youth and these communities. Friends, we are desperately going to need this over the next 9 months. So please give to that. And we thank you so much for all your support. And we look forward to how God's going to bless us through you and our leaders today. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you throughout the rest of the day. And we look forward to seeing how God provides. Thank you guys so much.